Hey guys, here I am with the eighth part with Kassra. We're fully into the Berlin topic, ban, new founding. You're still a prospect, but at some point you should become a member.
Yeah, the ban was enforced and still things went on. That was my phone just now, but relax, everything still kept going. The club just needed some time to recover. Like I said, then we had all this legal stuff, regrouping, restructuring, figuring out how, where, what. Then we had meetings, it was all very, very difficult. It was initially an announcement since no one knew their position, how things would unfold, or if anything else would occur. In the past, people used disposable phones and SIM cards that didn't require identification registration. You could buy them under the counter or officially, and then every time, every week, we had to get new phones, couldn't mention any names or places, just times. Locations were provided during meetings. The next one is there, time will be shared. And it was all very, very, yeah, very
Conspiratorial?
extremely conspiratorial. And then we got on to the A24 heading towards Hamburg from Berlin. Then we got off at the gas station out in the field, had a meeting, and somehow rented out restaurants here and there. That corner, this corner, Turkish cafe, and another clubhouse, and on Streustrasse near the Potsdamer brochures. Ex-Bandidos. Yeah, it was a very, very exhausting time. A lot had fallen apart club-wise, then also in terms of supporters, and therefore also in the business.
Did you also have a disappointment?
No.
So, man, I just found the structures. I wanted to really be part of this, and now theoretically it's being taken away from me right before my eyes.
No, because they were still there. The guys weren't gone. Those were merely patches, and they only lasted a few months before needing to be redone. So it was all very exciting, very eventful. You didn't know what the future would bring.
I'd like to touch on another topic now. I think I remember, but that's just my memory. Of course, it could be faulty. It's been a while.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I also think I remember that even people said from your club, not your club, but from the Hells Angels scene, they begged for it. That's just how it is.
Begged for what?
Yeah, for the ban, and now that's what they got. Or did you only get support nationwide?
No, but if you think about it, Cologne was banned during that time. Kiel was banned. I mean, Kiel, what's so special about Kiel? They weren't even close to being like us. And yet they were banned before us. So that's an argument that doesn't really hold up. But if someone saw it that way, then that's how they saw it. But that doesn't reflect reality because there were also charters that were banned that didn't even act or behave like we did.
Okay.
That's why it doesn't really make sense now. Back then, the state decided to deal with the situation by banning the clubs regionally through the individual state governments and the association law to shut them down and get the situation under control. Because you have to know, you were also active back then, the motorcycle scene, biker scene, one percenters and clubs were at their peak at that time in terms of new members and crimes, and it couldn't be stopped. And also in the media, it was crazy how much hype there was back then. I don't know how it was for you, but you were also part of the whole story, just on the other side, a bit smaller, more regional, but still connected to the whole thing. So it was huge, and the state wanted to get it under control somehow. And that's when they started with the club bans, which also made sense, and they managed to put a stop to it. Now here we are, 10, 11, 12 years later, and the situation is nowhere near what it used to be. Of course, there will always be trouble spots, there will be deaths, unfortunately, crime, people who join these structures and think they know better and can do better, and that they're taking a great path with it. They're very stubborn but need to learn from their own experiences. I don't like preaching to others either. If someone really wants to do it, then let them.
Exactly.
Live with the consequences, but be aware that it will end badly. And that will always exist, but I think the quality is already on a completely different level.
But did you receive support nationwide?
No, no, no. Only regionally. So not nationwide either. That was charter business just now. Charter business, and you just have to make sure you get somewhere with it. No one is going to come and beg or ask. Presidents and charters with good relationships may occasionally offer help, but generally, no one proactively reaches out to provide assistance again. That's not possible at all. And especially with us, we've already been loved by most and hated by most. So it's difficult.
It's still a difficult time now, meetings, clubhouse gone, and so on. How can you keep contributing to the club in ways that will attract new members?
Continue living as usual, just without wearing colors. So everyday life stays the same, only you meet somewhere else. Of course, there aren't those overnight options anymore, no more private secluded clubhouse at home. Instead, for many, many weeks, many months, we were in wedding, in a bar, in a sidebar, a lot and very often. Then Kadir's brother Ersoy took over Gate 51 at Kuchi near Chethohe, which is a round cafe. We spent a lot of time there. At one point, our sergeant, Ibo, purchased the Sahara on Gerichtsstraße, and that was our other place until the very last day, and that's where we ended up staying. And at the same time, after the reestablishment of the individual charters, East, North, West, and South Town, they founded the North Town Charter, of course, and then they also developed a new clubhouse.
Which one were you involved in?
I was under Eastgate, I was with the Nomads. The Nomads also split up and started a new chapter, Eastgate, and I was under that, and then they gave that to us as well. So the individual members were still divided up as well.
At this point, how long have you been there and involved? What time period are we discussing?
At the time of the ban?
Yes.
A good 2 years.
2 years already in Berlin?
Yeah, about a year and a half, something like that, 2 years, but still, give or take 2 or 3 months.
Still in prospect status?
Yeah, sure.
Exactly, and then, but you're still fully on track, right? Or is there already some disappointment here?
Not disappointment, not the kind I've experienced myself, but rather situations that happened in the club, which also irritated me at first. How can something like that happen? Why? I don't know it like that. That's not how it was communicated to me. That's not how it was presented to me. Unpleasant situations, the way of dealing with various people. I also experienced expulsions and similar issues. As a prospect back then, I was clueless, lacked a plan, and was completely wearing blinders. I was completely ideologized and utterly engrossed in my own world. I suppressed it in the typical way common in such subcultures. You suppress a lot and don't want to admit many things, but in hindsight, you always get a bit wiser and bring those memories back up and think, yeah, back then there was already this and that, so why are you even surprised now? But at the time, the situation was suppressed, blinders on, and I just wanted to become a member.
Was it communicated to you that the next step was coming soon, or were you completely unaware at that point?
No, I became a prospect, and that lasted for a year, until 2013. At the beginning of 2013, I was a prospect, and then pretty much exactly after a year, I became a member. So it works. Fluctuation, personnel. Because Berlin is 24/7, nobody sleeps there. And at our charter, there was always something going on, something was always happening, always some kind of event. Then there's also the overlap with the hip-hop scene. There were overlaps, big families, conflicts, friendships, relationships. I had my own struggles. I was in the process of building myself up. The club, people got kicked out. It's constantly...
I'm already getting a stomachache just from listening.
Yeah, sure, but you definitely know what that's like too. And it was just like... You were under constant fire, a constant barrage of events, and you never really get a chance to switch off.
Were you ever able to switch off?
No, never. I never switched off. It was always non-stop. Sleep, get up club, sleep, get up club, sleep, get up club. Maybe a day with the family, sleep, get up club, on the road with the club. Then it started. Denmark, 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 Sweden, Denmark, the runs. We visited the individual East charters, which changed again later. Afterwards, we received many visits from the Danes. It was crazy how much we were on the road. The Americans were with us, then there was the patch over in 2012. Then also from Grisha Vow's charter, so former bandidos who also did a patch over because they were pressured into it and there was a war against them. And there was always something going on, always something happening. So it's like you can't even, when you've just had one event, you think, okay, wow, next thing, That, okay, wow, you never really get a chance to calm down, to settle, like, okay, what just happened there? Then there were various expulsions. The vice president was kicked out, a member was kicked out, Becker was kicked out back then. Well, that just shows.
But what are the reasons for kicking someone out, and how is that communicated?
Yeah, then it said that he did business behind people's backs, lied, took money on the side. So there were always various reasons. But the main reason was always doing business without permission, without involving the club. After the ban was announced, the person continued having contact, doing business, and cheating the club despite the prohibition. That was the standard.
Always well-founded? Always with evidence?
No, never, never. In my membership, these things happened before my membership, but I also know in hindsight there were never any meetings about this. There were never any rules established where people sat down together. Listen, friends, the sergeant stands up and says, hey, here's Mehmet or Ali, whoever. There's an accusation in the room, money, cash was stolen. Presented, what happened there, what is the accusation, on what basis is it being made. Then the person who somehow witnessed it or made the accusation or brought it up, there always has to be someone, presents it, and then he has the right to comment on it. Then they go out, the members consult with each other, and then it is decided what happens to the man. And then they have to vote unanimously. There is also no one man, one vote. It has to be unanimous. Just like with the membership and with patching, the decision regarding the measures also has to be unanimous. First, regardless of its truthfulness, and then what is the measure? That didn't happen. SMS was kicked out.
But that's dictatorship.
Yes, it's undoubtedly a dictatorship, the finest kind.
That's arbitrary. I could just as easily claim Kassra dipped into the cash register.
Yes, and if you have the right people around you, and if I then have the right people around me, then it's over, exactly.
That's such an awful feeling.
Of course, of course.
You're always standing there with one foot in it somehow. You could basically bring your robe on a hook every day.
You're always at risk of getting cut off. The more dangerous you became, the stronger you got, the more you were always at risk, and the less sympathy the president had for you. Or individual officers, I always called them the inner circle. There was always a risk that they were playing a double game and really lie to you and deceive you there. But that was completely against the rules. But the issue was that no one spoke up. You know, on one side there's the person who does it, and on the other side there's the one who lets it happen to them. And none of the members were there, and from their perspective, they're all established men, like the elite of the elite, all elites, you know. And no one stood up. And then they said, hey, sorry, but we have rules here.
Yeah, and what evidence?
Where's the evidence? Where's the meeting? It never happened. Where are the members? What's going on here? Where's the voting? Where's the presentation? Where's the evidence? Where is his reasoning? Where's the vote? Where's the consequence? Where's the verification at all? What's going on here? A vice president was kicked out. A longtime member who was also strong was kicked out. Beko back then. So that was crazy what was being sorted out there.
But at the beginning it was...
And with that, just very quickly, he also weakened the charter to the maximum. And these are people who have quality. I mean, for the club, we're only talking from the club's perspective. Don't get me wrong, guys and girls out there, don't misunderstand. Just from back then, these were people with quality for the club. They shaped the club, helped lead it, and also moved it forward, more or less. He sorted them out, scoring an own goal in the process.
But at the beginning you said we live by the rules, it's about history. We follow the values that were set by the founding members 50, 60, I don't know, sometimes even 70 years ago that were created and developed here. There's quite a change in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very selective. I noticed that as well. You're really eager about motorcycle riding and related activities. But when it really gets down to the nitty-gritty with things where real lives are at stake and you could get kicked out, having to go there and explain yourself, that's not so great. So it's better at your workplace where you get called in and have to go there. But that's something completely different than standing in front of the Hells Angels as a member and being brought in and they say, hey, listen, you're about to be kicked out.
And that has to...
And of course, that changed things. There was only one situation, I'll never forget it. There was this guy, Rene, he was a member with us too, but he had his assignment or his, together with another guy, Igor, they had their region in Eberswalde. They were to mark out the region and were responsible for that area, including the Red Devils. They attended the meetings with us, and he was the only one who questioned Bulen's absence, asking Kadi what was happening. What, he's just out like that? Are we having a meeting? Do we want to talk about it or something? Then he comes and says, come on, don't talk our ears off. There's a good reason for it. Don't beat around the bush. Yeah, it's okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but that's what I would...
That's exactly what I mean. You'd feel the same and nobody said anything, including me. I've had my own issues with him and spoke up occasionally, getting shut down for it. Maybe we'll discuss that later. The situation briefly turned very dangerous for me, which he never forgot. And that's when it got really dangerous for me. He actually threatened me openly. And at that point it was clear to me, okay, here...
You can't really call that a club anymore.
Of course not.
But I don't want to get ahead of myself.
No, of course not. But you can see from that it was actually the complete opposite of what I thought I saw at the beginning. You know what I mean? It's the complete opposite. That's also where the entire process occurred. At the beginning, yeah, okay, come on, yeah, it's okay. It's like a relationship where at first you only ever see the woman, sorry, but where you only ever see the woman. And you say, yeah, she's so pretty, she's so hot, that's good, the sex is so good. And then you realize, okay, she's very toxic, she's provocative, she provokes, she's restless. And then you say...
A similar situation.
Whatever, come on, she's good. That's still the beginning, the rose-colored glasses. And then it keeps going, and the quirks get worse and have more and more of a negative impact on you, and the relationship erodes so much that you think, man, this is not what I imagined. I thought you were the sweetest of all, with a pure heart and a big heart, and you're exactly the opposite. It's all about you. You're toxic, narcissistic, and you're destroying everything I've built here, dragging me down into the abyss, both mentally and physically.
We got ahead of ourselves there. I actually wanted to go for it again now.
It just happened to work out that way at the moment.
And that's why this is a nice open talk. Thankfully, we don't have anyone here dictating what we have to do. Now exactly after a year, this member admission is happening, which I still find a bit strange, these commitments, because it's kind of...
No promises were made, but I became a member precisely 1 year later.
Well, but that happened to a lot of people, I know that too.
Yeah, I also experienced a few stories from North Rhine-Westphalia back then.
Where it was promised before that you only had to do it for a year and didn't have to do anything, so I have a few stories like that. Okay, but then the day comes. How does this admission process work now? We heard that as a hang-around, it was more like backslapping, then as a prospect, but now it's the member admission.
So, relatively unspectacular, unspectacular, but pretty much the same before I start rambling. Pretty much the same as when I became a prospect. I was called into the Sahara, along with a few others who had already... They held a meeting, called people in one by one and said, stand up front, we need to talk, this doesn't make sense with you. This doesn't fit, you came from Hamburg, you don't match with the people, you're not there, and there were a few situations where you didn't look good money-wise, it's also difficult for you, I think it's better if you go back home, and so on. And I look at them like that, and it was already delivered pretty well in that moment, you know. And I'm thinking, oh shit, it's all full just in that moment.
The entire house of cards falls apart.
I'm thinking, wow, and they're looking at me like, okay, somehow he's turning pale. Yeah, come here, you idiot. Then everyone jumped on me, bam, and started hitting me, knocked my feet out. I'm thinking, bam, bam, bam. It seemed like 10 minutes, but was likely only seconds. I got a bit beat up and bruised, but nothing serious. They put the t-shirts on me and welcomed me to the family. I got a picture, welcome to the family, PS81, Hells Angels Northtown official. I was assigned to Northtown, but then I was under Eastgate, but I was officially part of Northtown. And yeah, then I was a member. And of course, that was an extremely awesome moment back then, yeah. And at first I was like, okay, I made it. Now I'm part of the meetings, I'm a member. Now things are getting started.
And what will you then...
And in the truest sense of the word, both positive and negative, with all the duties and rights, well, fewer rights, more obligations that came with it, and yes, it eventually ended badly.
I had a question in the last part, but I forgot to ask it. Wasn't it common for a prospect to have to visit all the charters or something like that? Didn't that used to be a thing, or was that before your time?
I've never heard of anything like that.
No.
But that's up to the charter to decide for themselves.
Oh, then.
There's no club quiet time.
Okay. So a charter can decide that for themselves, because I remember someone said they had to do a tour through Germany and introduce themselves to the charters.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
As a prospect? Whoa, man. I know many people from various biker clubs, including Gremium, Bandidos, and Hells Angels. Share your thoughts in the comments or direct message me on Instagram. I still remember they even had a book where they had to record it, where they had to sign it off. I'm not sure now.
Of course, that's possible. You have to know it's always like that. You can't rule it out because such initiation rituals or admission requirements, regardless of the time and the way the charter wants to recruit certain people and what kind of characters have to prove themselves there in whatever way, it could very well be that they say, you prospect, ride around once. Then that's how it is. You just can't.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, you can't call a higher authority either, like, I'm going to file an official complaint, can someone look into this district court, can you check if this is okay? You have to, it's eat or be eaten, if not, then don't run away.
I even think there was a little booklet where you had to get something like a beast stamp.
Like a Lilify sticker.
Yeah, exactly, he was here.
A smiley like you did well.
Yeah, exactly, but like I said, it's not verified, but maybe someone can confirm it.
Yeah, but there can be certainty about it. There are all kinds of weird things out there. I've experienced quite a bit myself, so you can't rule it out.
Now, when you get this t-shirt, initially you're only permitted to wear the death head. Maybe you can briefly explain the death head.
What does it look like?
No, so the death head is actually the...
That's the patch. The Hells Angels symbol is registered as a trademark and has copyright protection. Hells Angels has also registered many things as trademarks. You can't just use them like that. And it's a registered trademark. And that's just the emblem for the club. Red and white were chosen very deliberately. Back then, when the club was founded, they wanted to choose a patch with special colors so that when people pass by, they notice it, it triggers a reaction. People remember it, focus on it, and keep it in mind. And you know, warning signs and stop signs, everything with warning signs is also red and white. That was done deliberately because these colors in combination visually trigger something in people and provoke a certain reaction. It's always warning, caution, and that's exactly what the Hells Angels had in mind as well. That's why they chose red and white, so that it stands out and stays in people's minds. And the Death Head is basically a skull with wings, with a sewn-up mouth, also as a reminder that you don't talk. And yeah, otherwise there's not much to explain, but you can just see it.
Now that you remember, was there a celebration to mark the occasion?
No, that happened once, but I was still a prospect then for 2 members. One of them was also convicted in the Expect murder case, and the other was kicked out again shortly after. Or rather, yes, he was kicked out, but not with us anymore. It wasn't celebrated like that anymore, it just stopped happening.
But it's kind of a shame too, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
You work towards it only to end up with something rather ordinary.
It had also lost all quality, if you could even call it that. But let's stick to the topic. Or let's just call it quality in the context of the whole thing. And then you could just see that steadily during the years I was there, it just went downhill. And looking back on it, all the signs were there, all the developments, or the way things developed, it was a steady decline in recruitment, in the quality of candidates, in the quality of the people.
I think a recording like that is really sad, you know?
Yeah, of course it's sad, but even just that, yeah.
I think I also remember someone from the club telling me that for a while they felt like the patches were only being handed out from the trunk of a car.
No, that wasn't the case with us.
Some people said that for many old members, prospect times lasted 2, 3, 4, or even 5 years. But that wasn't my experience with you guys.
And still didn't make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Partly.
And then, I mean, I once talked to old members too, like we already said. Today I feel like they're just handed out from the trunk, you know, so it's nothing special anymore.
I met a prospect in Kiel who was there for 2 years, and right at the 2-year mark they kicked him out as he didn't fit. I'm sorry. You have to, yeah, it's just what you expect. These are people who are just the way they are. It's a gathering place for all kinds of negative characters with negative attitudes. And now, inevitably, someone will say, but we're not all criminals and evil. And that's true. Not every Hells Angel is a criminal, but it is a criminal organization. And by being a member, you legitimize it, you justify it, and you also create a foundation for such things. Because the club is a criminal organization, it's designed to be criminal, it doesn't accept the state, and it even works against the state in some ways. You also did a reaction with me to certain things, and I can only repeat that here. The club honors its members for murder, it honors its members for acts of violence against people, and the club honors its members for violence against police officers as public servants performing their duties. The club honors people for prostitution, business, red light crew, whatever. So from that perspective, all this easy free rider attitude, we can just pull the plug on that. This happens rapidly as the club reveals its true nature through such actions. And that brings me back to what I already said in a video. When people show up who like to stick their heads in front of the camera and say, well, there are always black sheep in the family. Yeah, no, that's not the case. That just doesn't work. If you don't want to expose yourself to all these accusations and you think you want to have a decent club where things like that don't happen, then start your own club and things like that won't happen there. Be part of the community. Ride motorcycles, stick together, have a gathering, buy a garden shed, have a barbecue, and if something happens to a buddy, you can stand by him and support him financially, no matter what it is. But that's what it's designed for. The club is also meant to support people who go to prison because that's all part of it. Yeah, BK, BHC, Big House Crew, and all those free this and free that, Free Willy and whatever. And guys, stop it. Especially in this age of all this information and the internet, people can see enough and have enough ways to read up on it that it's all garbage, so don't let anyone tell you any crap. There will always be people who want that and who want to believe they want that, and the earth is also flat and not round. They want to believe it, you can't reach them anyway, so go ahead, have fun, and I wish you good luck and much success. You're the first out of 1 million to make it, something like that.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? So hey, please.
I would like to know now, even though it's just the recording and without a party and so on, how should we imagine that? Did you strut around afterwards wearing a t-shirt like that for the first time with a death head on it? Did you feel like you wanted everyone to see it, like you had to go from Starbucks to McDonald's to the next club to the next shisha bar and maybe even walk down Kudam or something?
No, I didn't take the t-shirt off anymore, so to speak. That was my second skin, yeah? The first thing I did, I still remember, I was sitting in the clubhouse in the Sahara, our other place, and I talked to Frankie. He was the sergeant from Kiel back then, and I still had a good relationship with him. He always gave me the best advice and told me I could do it. I sent him a t-shirt and a selfie, still using my iPhone 4. iPhone 4, guys, we're already at 16 by now. And I sent him my t-shirt, my own t-shirt, and then he also met up with me in Kiel and so on. And then the door opened in Kiel and we got much closer. I also saw Dirk a few more times after that, and everything changed a lot. And yeah, of course, you're inside the club, you're a member now, which means you get a bit broader, more or less. Man, for me, I suddenly became a man. A lot of people say that too. We made you a man. I always did my own thing, even before the club, sometimes badly. But I didn't suddenly start oppressing more people. Now I'm even more. Of course, that happens too, you know.
Yeah, that happens.
But luckily I didn't do that. I stayed cool and did my thing, and I was still an asshole just like before. So I didn't become even more of an asshole.
But am I wrong to assume that there are different levels from member to member?
Of course.
Depending on whether you're from Pusemuckel or from Berlin City?
Of course. There are even some prospects who are allowed to enjoy more respect than members. I've experienced that in my own charter too, so there are all kinds of things. That depends on what the man brings to the table and how he goes through life. And of course, that's also the case with the charters. I'm talking about back then. We weren't interested in any charters in Germany as none matched our standards. Except for West End, we were financially cool with them. Then some involvement with North Rhine-Westphalia, but that also fell apart due to many discrepancies. And a little bit of Northern Germany and also a bit with Hamburg. Southport, Dari back then, from your time, the charter, but otherwise there weren't any charters where we said, what do we have to do with them? Hello, say hello to everyone here, runs and so on. They also came to us and were more like tourists, wanted to see us, and yeah, great and all, but us never. We were heading towards Denmark, the ultimate destination for Kadir, the charter, and us. We naturally followed along, as Scandinavia was our driving force. We were closest with them, spending a lot of time together, and oriented ourselves in that direction. And that was also what we oriented ourselves towards, or rather what he oriented himself towards, and that's how he built up the charter. So with the rules, this even stricter leadership, military and dictatorial, even though the ideas weren't even remotely like that.
I won't bother you much longer today.
It's all good, I enjoy sitting with you.
Thank you, but the sun is already starting to set here. You just said it, and with that I would wrap things up for today. You wrote, I then became a member, and of course there were rights and responsibilities. How does one get introduced in meetings? So what do they tell you? Is there some kind of meeting where they say, look, here are the world rules? Or do you get added to a new WhatsApp group? Do you get put on a mailing list? Yeah?
But yeah.
So what happens? What exactly changes? Do you get more information? Do you get an update on the club's account balance? Or
imagine being in WhatsApp groups like HAMC or Berlin City, and someone says, hey, the Persian guy is coming, what's up? Yeah, with you, and I can just picture it right now, you know what I mean? Dude, that's so totally crazy, man. The idea is really funny. But yeah, you're right.
that must exist somewhere?
Yeah, definitely. They definitely will. Yeah, he did a patch today. He has a patch in the box. Yeah, he got 24/7 view. Okay, cool. Hey, man, everything's possible. But no, jokes aside, of course, we can't downplay this here. Also for the viewers. I have access. The first time was, of course, from that moment on, I was allowed to participate in the meetings as a member. I had to and wanted to. I have access to the email distribution list from our charter and Hells Angels Germany and international access. That means you shouldn't forget, Hells Angels is a company that is set up worldwide, that is connected worldwide, and that maintains connections and exchanges information globally. Who comes, who goes, photos, automated standing, parties, runs, organizations. Countries have to organize runs. These are hundreds of people who come, if not 1,000, 2,000, whatever. That already requires a massive organization. So don't underestimate that. This is not a village club. This is an international company, more or less. So I had access to the emails, I saw all kinds of things. Information from America, Scandinavia, Germany, Europe, whatever. Scandinavia is Europe, but I mean all over Europe, all over America. We're also represented in Asia, Japan. There was even a charter there back then, Australia. And I had access to all of that. Yeah, but I never knew what was in the club's cash box. Arms dealing, like sergeant, like we have this and that many weapons in stock or whatever. No, that was reserved only for the inner circle.
But that doesn't mean you're immediately, what?
Reserved. I phrased withheld incorrectly earlier.
Yeah, but then you're still somehow not, there's a gradation again.
Yeah, sure, of course. But it's totally clear. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to me otherwise. For us, it was always clear that we'd say, okay, what do we have in the cash register, you know? That was definitely an eye-opener for me too.
Anyone could just say, I don't even know what was in there.
Yeah, of course, sure, people get fooled. Absolutely. But I didn't know that before because I wasn't a member. I only realized later that I wasn't informed about our finances, including our available funds, expenses, and what the club paid for and what it didn't. All those things. And that's when I realized, yeah, okay. And then I already noticed back then that a lot of certain people were very close. I wasn't walking around blind, but I didn't think there was this kind of inner circle and that there really was a structure within the structure. That even as a member, you didn't even come close to getting that kind of trust or being in that position like the inner circle.
You had to earn that trust beforehand.
Yeah, but it's not real trust, it's just a patch. But there wasn't really any genuine interpersonal trust there, not 100%.
Okay, but what other information did you get? Email distribution lists provide information about ongoing parties, member photos, standing patches, and more.
Yeah, information, stuff like that.
But anything else?
No, that was it. It was also very sobering for me because I realized, what is this? I also discovered a structure within the structure, an inner circle, which I describe in my book. I don't know, you've probably read it too, and I think we've already talked about it before. There were people who just played the game with each other, using others for their own benefit, enriching themselves economically, supporting and protecting each other. And like I said, I've already mentioned it in another video with the guys at Sequence. Greetings to Ramon at this point. I also said you can't run a charter on your own. You always have to have young guys around you, people who work for you, who all get a piece of it, who can also benefit and make a living from it. So eating in the sense of being able to enrich themselves economically, because you can't make it on your own. It's only a matter of time before they overthrow you, a Caesar-style assassination or something like that. So that's how it was. Then there were the people he had around him. Everyone benefited from each other, with him benefiting the most. And nothing ever came close to that. Nothing came in. I still remember a situation. There was a prospect, I can't recall the name, who had access to a bank and was able to push through loans that way. Yeah, something like 150,000 in that range. He talked to me about it openly without any problem when I expressed my interest back then. I said, yeah, then go ahead and set it up properly. I'm up for it. Let's do it. We can make it happen and shoot and all that. In my naivety, I told Kadir about it and he responded with acknowledgement. I told him not to discuss it with others. And that was a moment where I thought, he told me that quite openly, probably in an honest moment, just without thinking. Okay, wow. A few days later, I asked him about the situation. He said we had to wait as it wasn't working. Then he pulled him aside and gave him a talking to. Me and a few people, otherwise that's it for the day. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's actually the reason why it failed in the end and why the whole thing crashed and burned. Of course, there are still people who believe in this whole story and don't have any other perspective on life, which is really sad. I just feel sorry for those people. I don't hold any grudge either, but that's just, yeah, you're right. It's not just a big question mark, it's just shaking my head. Even within these structures, there is certainly little charter. I only experienced that back then when I was a member. I didn't transfer. But I know from my experience, also from third and fourth parties, that it wasn't even remotely like that.
So that's already a shocking part. Thank you very much for your openness. I'd like to do the next part. Maybe Thorsten behind the camera can take notes. A typical day of a Hell's Angel, Kassra Zargaran in Berlin. So we can do that as the next part. What a day looks like. How a meeting goes, so people can get an idea of what is discussed there and so on. So thank you very much for your openness in explaining that, really. Guys, check out Kassra's book, The Persian. It's linked below. Show some support. Share your opinion. Thumbs up or down. Feel free to comment. Does anyone remember having to travel through Germany or elsewhere with a small booklet that required stamps? So thank you very much, Thorsten, to you as well. Thank you so much. Thanks to the community. After a long day of filming, which will continue tomorrow, I bid you ahoy from the coast, as always.